Okay, recording has begun, so I will turn it over to our facilitators.
Okay, so our presentation this week is on anti-racist pedagogy. And this is kind of our agenda roadmap for the session. So we're going to do a brief poll to get started to kind of gauge where we're at right now, go over some definitions. Then we'll have two just very brief presentations based on some resources that we found in relation to this topic. Then we'll do an activity as a whole group by looking at some scenarios in breakout rooms, and then come back and share out our ideas. And then we'll kind of wrap it up by connecting to what we talked about in the breakout rooms and how to stop bigotry in our classrooms. So I think I'll turn it over to Leah to do our poll.
Okay, so first we have a poll. So how comfortable are you discussing anti-racist ideas in your classroom, or if you don't teach in a classroom, in, I guess, a setting with coworkers or with family, whatever applies to your situation?
So we wanted to start with a few definitions at the beginning of our talk here. And the complete list of definitions from this book, How to Be an Anti-Racist, are in our Whites for Accountability Canvas site. We just took out a few important ones. And what he does in his book is he starts every chapter with a definition of something that is and something that isn't. So race is a power construct of collected or merged differences that lives socially. So the whole idea of it being a social construct is very important as a part of our definitions. And a racist is someone who is supporting a racist policy through their actions or inaction, or expressing a racist idea. So the idea that you're a racist all the time is, in his view, incorrect. You can be racist and unracist depending on the situation and how you act. So that's a completely changeable thing that happens throughout the day with all your interactions. You can be racist or anti-racist depending on how you decide to act. So an anti-racist is someone who is expressing the idea that racial groups are equals and none is developing, and is supporting policy that reduces racial inequity. And I think that last part is especially important to us as staff and faculty at RTC to be thinking about. Cultural racist is one who is creating a cultural standard and imposing a cultural hierarchy among racial groups. And a cultural anti-racist is one who is rejecting cultural standards and equalizing cultural differences among racial groups. So every step of the way throughout his book, he talks about how you can do these things or become these things, but none of them are set in stone completely in your innate personality. So we want to start with that.
So when we were looking at different resources and putting this presentation together, we watched some of the webinars from the Center for Urban Education series. So Liz and I are going to share our takeaways from two different of those webinars. And the one I watched was called Equity-Minded Online Teaching, Using Canvas as a Model. And it was led by Professor Jennifer Ortiz, and she's an English faculty at a technical college in Los Angeles. And in her presentation, she discussed 6 equity-minded principles or practices. And then she emphasized the fact that it can be difficult for us to focus on and prioritize racial equity in times of crisis, such as during a pandemic, despite the need to actually be more attentive to our most marginalized communities. And I found this webinar particularly relevant right now because all of her strategies focus specifically on pedagogy in an online setting and using Canvas, which is what we're all doing. So these are some of the things that she shared that she does in her classes in order to be equity-minded. The first was welcoming. She said that when they pulled data from their campus, they realized that the period of time where they lose the most students was between when a student registers for class and the first day of the quarter. So she really emphasized the importance of providing early outreach and trying to connect with students before the quarter starts. So she suggested connecting early, giving them the syllabus ahead of time to give them reassurance and answer questions about the class. She also suggested creating a welcome video as a way to communicate to the students. And this can be a way to introduce yourself, explain Canvas, since that might be brand new to students, maybe how to contact the instructor if you have questions. And this made me excited to see that she mentioned this is an equity-minded practice, since I know RTC, especially this quarter, has really encouraged us to upload like a welcome video to our Canvas homepage. And then also to make sure that we're providing 3-2-1 start activities so that the students can get engaged with the course before the quarter starts. And then the second one was demystifying. And some information in our courses is not necessarily obvious to students. So we need to make sure that the information that we're providing is transparent and accessible so that they know exactly what to expect before classes begin. And she suggested creating some classroom artifacts like syllabus, assignments, in a way that students can easily make sense of the content. And her suggestion to help with that was to maybe make some how-to videos. So like if you use a specific platform for booking office hours, maybe create a how-to video so that it can walk students through how to do that. And I know in CCP, we made some videos to like help some of our ESL students navigate the intake forms, which can be challenging in a new language. So I think just kind of walking students through and demystifying so they know what to expect. And then the third thing she mentioned was validating. Validate students before and throughout the course by communicating the belief that all students are capable and expected to succeed. And she sends a culturally relevant playlist to her students every Friday with different music genres. And then she also uses social media in order to be visible and reachable and as a way to share resources with her class. The next one she talked about was creating a partnership. And she said, ideally, we should be providing both synchronous and asynchronous opportunities to connect with students. And she said that she believes that asynchronous learning provides flexibility and it's equity-minded, but that opportunities for synchronous learning are helpful as well. And so to create that partnership, she had something that she calls Join the Party, where each week she schedules like a time to have a virtual study hall and chat, and then plays background music. And she said she has a different student each week as like the guest DJ to kind of change up the taste in the music and then to honor the personality and style of each student. Then the next one was representing. So communicating the value of students' racial and ethnic experiences and backgrounds through assignments, readings, and other materials in the course. And her example for this was that she has an assignment where she uses 2 female scholars of color and shows different videos, and then has students apply like a racial lens to the concept of grit. And she specifically selects presenters that she feels are more complex and identifiable to her students. And then the last one was deconstructing. So removing or decentering whiteness as the norm, and then promoting critical examination and awareness of students' assumptions, beliefs, and privilege, as well as the dominant norms and broader social inequities. So like when we do our breakout rooms today, we're gonna look at some scenarios that might come up like in a class discussion. So considering that students are bringing different beliefs and privileges and perspectives to the classroom discussion. And she ended the presentation by asking us to consider how will we build practice that support minoritized students? And then moving forward, what practices would we engage with in response to COVID? And that reminded me a lot of our retention action plans, how we're kind of thinking through what we're doing and then figuring out how to make things more equity-minded. And our last slide of the presentation is some resources. So if you're interested in watching any of these webinars or looking at the transcripts, we'll have the link there for you. And then the next one is, I'll turn it over to Liz.
So the webinar I attended was how to express authentic care with a focus on racial equity. And this was not just in the classroom, this was a campus-wide project that was carried out, and I don't have the name of the college listed here, but it was carried out in a college, and they had student surveys they used to collect information. But it was informed by the common assumptions that racially minoritized students are deficient or deficient. And oftentimes instructors and administrators' responses imply that racial equity means to provide interventions that fix students. So the session showed how to critically address and provide authentic care to students with a focus on racial equity. And this reminded me a lot of some of the work we've been having going on at RTC. Camille Pomeroy led a session about the deficit mindset. We've been talking about that in some of our groups and how we need to conquer that, get rid of that, and think of things in the new mindset. So this is something we have, I think, already started going on here at RTC, and we can keep growing. I don't know who's doing the slides. Can I do it? Oh, so this was the slide that really struck me. This is a screenshot from their presentation that struck me the strongest, in that what they've seen is that in order for a student to have academic achievement, they need to have all of these basic needs met first. So if they need, food and shelter, if they're worried about their safety, and if they have a belongingness or love needs not met, or issues in their lives that are not met or problematic, they're not going to be able to reach the psychological need of prestige and feeling of accomplishment that they need in order to have academic achievement. So these very basic baseline things have to happen. And we do have a lot of things at RTC to help meet those needs, but calling it out as you're not going to get anywhere with a student in your class as far as raising their grade if these things are having them understand concepts, if these things are interfering. So I thought that was a really impactful concept that they brought forth. And so from the survey that they carried out, they talked about what students see as an expression of care from the faculty side. What are students' opinions about what's most important that the faculty do? And so the faculty need to know about their academic goals. That was the #1 thing. Right. And then, so I think most of our people do, but maybe we assume that they're in a program, that's their goal. But people might have other things that they want to do beyond the program or do differently with the skills they're learning. So being really aware of that might be really important. To know about their career goals, know about their life aspirations, know my name. And this plays into the 4 connections that we've talked about at RTC, that knowing that addressing the student by the name at all times is really important to make them feel recognized. And then knows important information about my personal life is also there. So this is I think some of the counselors here this is what you specialize in, but faculty don't always think about that. And it's sometimes a fine line, but recognizing the student as an individual who has different things happening in their life can really help them reach that level that they're able to achieve academic learning. And especially now in COVID, people have a lot of issues going on. I mean, all of us have a lot of issues going on. So being aware of that and recognizing that, so that a late assignment is not felt to be something that to place blame on somebody, but that help can be offered so that they can get through what needs to happen. And then from staff, they asked about what makes you feel, how do you feel self-care from the staff that work at your school. The campus services provide me with the help I need. And this is a really, of course, #1 thing, but it always seems like we're trying to do that, and then we still have people falling through the cracks. So finding ways to get those people that don't get the help they need. Campus services provide me with accurate information. This is, of course, really important. And I think, I don't know, I feel like RTC's made an amazing leap in our website construction and how we're offering, and the Zoom rooms and the breakout sessions inside Zoom rooms to help reach our students with accurate information. Campus services I need for success are easy to access. So reducing access barriers is important, and they're available when I need them. So this is important too. And we might need to think about that in other areas such as night students and students needing help beyond the daytime. And I know which campus services to go to for help. So that's something else that we need to make sure. And that kind of goes back to the demystifying thing that Kyra mentioned, that the language we're using on the website makes sense to the students. Like, what does that kind of thing mean to the students? So demystifying the whole way through so they see where to go, what they need to do. So now we have Jake to lead us through our scenario.
One of the things we're gonna do next is we're gonna put you guys into breakout rooms, and there's gonna be 2 breakout rooms, and the breakout rooms are gonna deal with several different scenarios, and each group has 3 different scenarios that we're hoping you guys can focus on and kind of talk through, and then do a small report out, if I recall correctly, when we come back to the larger groups.
Okay. So I used a resource just to wrap up kind of the scenarios and kind of strategies that you can use in the classroom or, you know, with other coworkers in a group setting. And just for those that are teachers, I am instrumental in stopping bigotry in my classroom. And just like Laura and Liz highlighted, that because of our positions, it is our responsibility to kind of address these situations. And so these come from Teaching Tolerance. It's a PDF. It is at the end on the resources page that you can click on. So strategy 1 is to interrupt. So no matter what you're doing, stop what you're doing and address it right away. And really important to just address the situation and and show the person that you will no longer listen to what they have to say. But it is also important to remain calm and direct when responding to the person. And strategy 2 is to question. So what did you mean by that? Or tell me more in that you're trying to call in, as we say. And it's important to come at the person or individual with curiosity and not with just accusations. Because a question with the right tone can open up the conversation rather than shut it down for the person. And the next slide. So strategy 3 is to educate. So educate those that say biased statements or use derogatory terms on the reasons why the statement or term can be hurtful. And it's important to do this with grace, right? Because most of the time in those moments, that person did not mean to say that with ill intent. And we should always, in that same term, we should always educate ourselves as well. As educators, we should always also, you know, be open and willing to teach and self-reflect and educate ourselves. And lastly, the last strategy is to echo. So, and that's just empowering someone that has spoken up against a biased remark and just saying, you know, yes, I agree with that, or thank you for speaking up. Yeah. So those are just some really simple strategies that you can think of as far as addressing different kind of biased or derogatory terms or any kind of bigotry in the classroom. So interrupt, question, educate, and echo. And that is it for my slides. And here are the resources.